Hey, what's up guys? I am wandering around in the province in a town called Naval in northern Leyte. Really cool town. And for this video, I'm just gonna wander around as I tell you a story about something that happened to me in the province when I went to meet a Filipina several months ago. And this kind of thing could definitely happen to you if you come to the Philippines to meet a Filipina, because it's not uncommon whatsoever. Now keep in mind, not everyone's the same. There's all different types, and some Filipinas are extremely shy and would rather have a long distance relationship with you for a while before meeting. But this type, the Filipina that I met, very different than that. And this type is not uncommon here, guys. All right, let's get to it. Here we go. What I want to talk about in this video, in addition to telling you this story, is how quickly things can move along when it comes to the progression of things when you meet someone compared to back home. Like how quickly a Filipina can come out and say she loves you, like almost right away. And that is not uncommon. Or how quickly a Filipina can get so comfortable with you and be affectionate with you. Or how quickly a Filipina can get comfortable with the thought of like marrying you or talking about kids with you. And of course, there is a spectrum, guys. There's the extreme, which is probably some sort of a scam, a way of, enticing someone. But there is cultural differences here when it comes to that kind of stuff, in terms of love and romance and how it's viewed here. And a lot of that plays into how quickly this sort of progresses. And from what I can tell, a lot of this changes when you get, further into the province. Those words, I love you, and the affection can obviously come from, I want this so bad. If you're coming from poverty, the thought of marrying a foreigner would change everything. And for the family too, perhaps, right? So how much of it is just that? Anyways, for this video, I want to tell you a story of something that happened to me several months ago when I went out to the province to meet a Filipina. Someone that I had been chatting with for less than a week that I met online. We connected right away. The conversation was great. And I was actually quite excited about this girl, just based on our dialogue. It felt right. She was 28 years old. She had graduated from university with an education degree. She was a licensed teacher that was just kind of getting started with that. Everything just seemed to feel just perfect. So we decided to meet in person, because best way to get to know someone, in my mind, is to get together, meet in person, and see where it goes. And decided, I'm gonna take a bus to your province area, your province town, and we'll meet. I'll get a hotel, so I'll be close by, and we can, hang out for a day. And if it goes well, then, we'll kind of see where things go. No big plans or anything like that. And she didn't really say a whole lot other than that either. It was just, let's get to know each other. So I get there, I get off the bus, and there she is. She was not shy at all. Big smile on her face, came right up to me. It was like a quick hello. And she grabbed me by the arm, and she's like, I want to take you somewhere. And so I'm like, all right, well, nice to meet you. Sure. Where are we going? She's like, we're going to go to the market over here. And she immediately, grabs me by the arm, and then eventually grabs me by the hand and starts holding my hand. And she's holding me close, and she's looking up at me and smiling. And I'm just kind of like a little bit taken back, but not uncomfortable. She's this petite, cute Filipina. So I'm kind of like, wow, this is great. But we're walking along, and I'm noticing that she knows everybody. This is the town that she grew up in. She's 28 years old. She knows all these shop owners. So we're getting a ton of attention because of that. And she's sort of blushing and smiling, and you can see that they're almost, looking at her in a way that felt like they were congratulating her, essentially. Some of them were even reaching out and, shaking her hand and patting her on the shoulder as we're walking by. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is definitely interesting. I felt welcomed by everybody, and that made me feel great, obviously. And she's showing me all this affection. But in the back of my head, I'm like, what is happening here? What is brewing up? Well, we make our way into the main market area, and it's this huge open area where they're selling produce and meat and fish. And we're heading straight towards this one section where she said her sister is working. She wanted me to meet the sis. And I'm like, all right, cool, let's go. Let's meet the sis. As we get closer to there, there's a bunch of people gathered around where her sister is working. Already there, waiting for us to arrive. We get there and we get a welcome committee. Friends and family are hanging out around the booth. A lot of them work in the market, and some of them had just come over there from other areas of the town knowing that we were arriving. And it was wild. There was literally people that gathered around us when we got to the booth, and people just wanted to come up and thank me for coming, and they were excited to see me. They were talking to her and like, again, almost giving her like a congratulations type of thing. And she looks at me as if to say, aren't you excited that we have this welcome party for you? And none of this was talked about before. There are kids around my legs, jumping up and down, looking at me. Everyone's excited. Foreigner has arrived. And I'm just like, wow, okay, this is from less than a week of chatting with no preparation for anything like this and no expectations for anything. This is probably a little over the top, but this dynamic, guys, of you going to see someone has the potential for this kind of thing where she wants a foreigner really bad. And apparently she has never had a foreigner come to see her, and she has been wanting a foreigner that she meets online to come and see her. And because I am the one that said, all right, I am going to come out there and I am going to meet you, this became a big, big thing, a really big thing. I should point out some things that came up in these little conversations that I was having with like friends and family. I mean, what I remember is I was asked, what do you do for a living, a few times. I was asked, how long are you going to stay here in our town? I was even asked, like, do you love her? Of course, some of this is normal, but when you're just meeting someone for the first time, it kind of creates a little bit of that awkward, how do you respond to that? You don't want to disappoint anyone, and you don't want to come across like you don't care, but at the same time, you're just meeting this person. And so again, it's sort of like this leapfrogged stage, or several stages are leapfrogged. So we end up breaking away. We break away from the market, and it's just her and I now. We're walking around town. She's holding my hand. The affection is just becoming more and more. The comfort, I couldn't believe the comfort. Like, that's one of the things that you might notice if you are dating in the Philippines. If they like you, there is this immediate comfort with affection as if they've known you forever. And it's wild, but it's also kind of cool as a guy to have this cute girl that's hanging on you, that's just showing this affection and looking at you in a way that they're so into you. And I can see why guys get, so caught up in this and make very poor decisions, especially for, there are guys that come here that, haven't dated for a very long time. And they walk into a situation like this where they have someone that's doing this to them, and they're feeling like overwhelmed with probably joy and like excitement, right? So you can see where you can make some poor decisions. But here's the dilemma that pops in your head for most guys. Even though I was thinking this is not natural, and I'm questioning it's, how genuine this, affection and stuff is, you still, as a guy, you feel yourself just loving it. You love that attention, you love the affection. And so you start to like tell yourself, okay, we can see where this goes. When you're getting that attention and affection, your mind is just it's not right. It's not straight. And so guys that are not used to that at all, and a lot of guys that come to the Philippines do so because of just being honest. Like, they do it because they just don't have any luck at all with relationships, and they're not used to any of it. And so a lot of these guys will just go for that. They'll go with it. And the girl says, I love you, and I want to be with you, I want to marry you. And a lot of guys, get married really, really quickly in the Philippines. But me personally, I can definitely relate in a feeling of just really, really liking that feeling of attention. And what guy doesn't like affection from a cute girl, right? So this is sort of playing in my mind as the day goes on. But this is where things got really tricky and things went sour, unfortunately. At some point in the day, we're walking hand in hand, and we're sitting on a boardwalk, looking out at the water. And it was just a nice setting. And she turns to me and tells me, "I love you." She dropped it. She dropped the "I love you" within hours of meeting her. And it was a nice moment in terms of the setting, in terms of, we had gotten comfortable really quick, and I was rolling with it, And it created a real tricky situation for me, because that's not something that I feel comfortable just reciprocating. If I don't feel it, if I don't mean it, I'm not going to tell a girl that I love her. It takes a while, and I think it takes a while for most, Western people, Western guys and girls, to talk like that, to say things like that. So I told her, in a nutshell, "I'm sorry, I am enjoying your company, and you seem so great and so sweet, but I don't love you like I just met you. It takes time. It takes time before I can feel that way." And unfortunately, from that point on, the conversation just took a little bit of this sour turn, because she was upset with my response. And the more we talked about it, the more I felt the need to explain some things as far as not being on the same page, essentially. And the more the conversation went in that direction, the more almost angry she got. And it turned into a conversation of like, she wanted me to feel jealous. And she started to mention other guys she has been chatting with, and other opportunities she has, and things like that. And that was her sort of defense mechanism, because I didn't tell her I love her, and I wasn't saying things that made her feel like I felt the same way. Man, it really got awkward really quick. And so because of that vibe change, it just sort of threw me way off, and it sort of killed the whole thing. So the affection was gone, and that vibe was gone. And it ended up being sort of a shorter lived experience, where I ended up just heading to the hotel, and I bolted in the morning. Now, she did start messaging me like crazy after about an hour, apologizing for a lot of the things that she said. And I understand, I get it. She, I think, put herself out there, and when you don't get the reciprocation, it makes you feel kind of embarrassed, right? So the texts were coming in. I want to give this a try. I really want this to work, and things like that. And I just felt it just wasn't what I was looking for, right? So I ended up, boogieing out in the morning. She showed up at the bus stop too. She was there, and she wanted to convince me to stay. And so the awkwardness continued right up until the last minute. It was a tough thing. It's one of those things that you live and learn from. But that's why I'm making this video. Because as a Western guy, as a foreigner, you want to spend time in person to get to know someone. And if you're going to go meet someone in the province, you have to realize things are different there. And as soon as you commit to meeting someone, and you've interacted with friends and family, you have now crossed that line. You've crossed the line. They don't really date in the province. It's sort of like it just jumps ahead into a situation of relationship and love early on. Of course, this example might not be the most typical at all, but it's not totally far-fetched either. So how do you navigate this, right? You want to get to know someone. You want to spend time with someone, but you don't want to have it go into this situation that I was in, and many people fall into, when things jump too far ahead and the expectations change and the family's involved and everyone is sort of like thinking something else is happening way early on. Now, the obvious thing would be to communicate it right away. When you're talking about meeting or you're talking about anything, you have to be upfront about, what the expectations are and how your approach is and what you're comfortable with in terms of the progression of things. I mean, communication is key for everything. But a lot of guys aren't comfortable communicating this kind of stuff. And also there's that fear of losing out on an opportunity. And if you say too much of this, you don't want the girl to run away and not be interested anymore. And I know that plays into the mind of guys if they're chatting with someone that they really like or that's really cute. So the tendency is to just roll with it until it gets to a point where maybe it's too much, right? The other thing and this is really big, and I've talked to a lot of other guys that sort of fall into this, is that because we are coming to another country with different culture, we start to modify our thinking, and we start to sort of go with things that we normally would never go with in regards to these differences, in regards to how to approach a relationship. We start to just adapt everything, and we roll with it because we want to sort of go with what the culture is here in the Philippines and sort of like process it along the way without even really talking about it. And that plays into it too, if that makes sense, right? We change our thinking to adapt to the way things are here, but how do you know how much should you change your thinking to where it's still within reason and it doesn't go beyond just the cultural differences, and it doesn't fall into that, you know, danger zone in terms of like all the other stuff, the bad stuff, the desperate part of it, and the scammer part of it, right? So these are the tricky aspects of it. That's the kind of thing that you have to learn how to navigate. But again, communication is key. Being upfront is key. And you have to really understand what is important to a Filipina, especially out in the province. You know, when it comes to meeting them and when it comes to the family and things like that. That's something that I had no clue on at all, like when I first came here. And I've learned, you know, obviously a lot more along the way. But you have to you got to be sensitive to that. But you also have to be upfront and realistic about what you feel you need in terms of getting to know someone, where you do have to meet them. So that's the tricky thing. It is very different here, without a doubt. Fun times in the Philippines, guys. And hopefully you got a little intel to what things are like here. Always grateful for your support of the channel, watching the videos. Stay tuned for more, because much more to come.